だってごまかし笑っていた。足りなくて補って届かなくて、誰もがきっと見失って生きづらさの理由を知る。呼吸はまだ続くか、一息で貫くためには少し苦しいだろう。許せいっぱい我らが行くことを、今埋める時を見事かしゃぎきれても道だけは続いている。その美しさもあれにも大河に切れる高さ、残り数よせずね、まだ進んでけ進んでけよを超えて。間違えたままだって歩くのは得意だった。かけたままだってごまかし笑っていた。足りなくて補って届かなくて、誰もがきっと見失って生きづらさの理由を知る。呼吸はまだ続くか、一息で貫くためには少し苦しいだろう。許せいっぱい我らが行くことを、今埋める時を見事かしゃぎきれても道だけは続いている。その美しさもあれにも大河に切れる高さ、残り数よせずね、まだ進んでけ進んでけよを超えて。
Good evening. We're picking up where we left off last week, actually. I tried playing it on Monday, and the game just didn't work at all. But I got it fixed. I've dropped every graphical option down to the lowest. Miyamoto Iori's peaceful life in Edo was abruptly and utterly shattered. Congratulations on being cursed by the attack of the mysterious armored warrior. Guided by the heroic spirit Saber, he becomes embroiled in a rite of desire and destruction, the waxing moon ritual. The beginning is writ, but how will it end? With a glorious victory or something else? Chapter 1, Demonic Revelry. Of all the things, the berserker Musashi finds some human sympathy. A bit of a letdown after such an impressive first act, but what can you do? I said I was sorry. My dear apprentice, who would have thought Iori would be here? Be there? What are you doing in Edo anyway? I could ask the same of you, Master. Why are you in Edo? How are you even alive? No, why do you look like a woman, and such a young one at that? You don't think that I could be somebody else then? You are the very person. There is no doubt. Miyamoto Iori is not blind. Well, there you have it. Alright, you got me. Yes, long story short, I am the real Miyamoto Musashi. I'm a smidge different from the Musashi you know, but I'm still basically the same person. That said, you really are the same Iori I know. You got that same flexible mind and calm gaze. You're the spitting image of him. Different timeline, I guess? Why, thank you. Or wait, no. Well, maybe, I don't know. Those who should be dead have come back, and they're all absurdly strong. Lord Samurai, I take it you are familiar already with these heroic spirits. Then, my master here, she's from the past? Exactly. We all died a long time ago. Unless we're going to die at some point in the future, that can happen. Our answers match at least. The reason why Saber acts like everything is being seen and heard for the first time is because that's exactly the case. That particular Musashi has isekaiitis? Elaborate, please. How many decades or centuries have you been asleep, Saber? Pardon my interruption, but heroic spirits are shades of the great heroes found in history books and fables. They are extraordinary beings beyond human comprehension. You too, Master? I'm a special case. I'm from a world where Miyamoto Musashi was born female, and was engraved into this world's history when I died. I see. So you are my master, but not exactly, and for a woman instead. Yep, that's the long and short of it. You're as quick on the uptake as ever, Iori. I wonder if all the Ioris are like that. All Ioris? I'm afraid I don't understand. Did she just told you that she's from another world? Do you, Saber? Not even a little. Well, it seems like the Musashi you're familiar with, led more or less the same life I did, so... You're almost the same person, but not quite, is that it? Exactly. You really are quick to pick up on what somebody wants to say. I respectfully disagree. We had to repeat this like 3 or 4 times before he actually caught on. But you better be careful. You don't know this about me, but I've traveled across many worlds and eras. It'd be best not to compare me to the Musashi you know, okay? I've taken quite a liking to foreign things, for instance. Yeah. Why is Musashi here? Basically, this is an alternate timeline version of Iori's master who happens to be a woman. Because fate. I don't think she's a berserker. Like, we fought Berserker the other day. He was like the giant Greek guy. I've taken quite a liking to foreign things, for instance. It seems that way. You certainly are different from the way my master was when he adopted me. It reminds me of what he told me before about his young and foolhardy day. I mean, back when my master was a Fate spirit. What? You're telling me that the male Musashi grew old and became a man of culture? Unbelievable. Okay, that's enough. Let's get back to the task at hand. The master who attacked Yoshiwara says he wants to just see how things develop. Well, being acquaintances, I don't think it's an outrageous request. But isn't it rather opportunistic of you when you're the one who picked the fight? Eh? She's saying she wants an apology. An apology? Is that so? Yes, well, at the very least, you could relay some juicy gossip. Yui Shosetsu, eh? Interesting. And he revealed his identity just like that. What? He must truly be an honest samurai. Now, I'm looking at the curve of that chest, and I'm not thinking he. Whatever. I'll take it at face value. And did you give your name in return? Huh? You carry a katana after all. I took you for a samurai too. Samurai? Is that what I look like? I see. Well, did you or did you not? I'm afraid I do not recall. I hoped you might let something slip. That adorable face hides a clever mind. Oh dear, and after we revealed Musashi's identity... Well, Yori's my disciple and adopted son, so there's no helping that. I won't say that it's unfair for them not to tell their name. After all, exposing your identity makes it easier to lose. You haven't even told your master, have you? Your true name, that is. Also, feet spotted. Really? What a surprise. Master and servant are supposed to be one in body and mind. A servant makes the master, and a master makes the servant. Ow, the bonks. Why? They hurt. You both redeemed bonks. Ow, why? Why is there no cooldown on that? A servant makes the master, and the master makes the servant. Without a servant, the master cannot fight. Without a master, a servant cannot remain. Neither of these things are true. Hold on. What do you mean by cannot remain? Well, you see, if a master dies, their servant can't stay in the mortal world for long. A master is like an anchor that keeps a heroic spirit rooted to this world. I see. You're looking a little pale there, Saber. Probably rethinking everything said and done until now. Saber didn't seem to mind if I died in the middle of battle. If I die, I die was how Saber seemed to consider the situation. Anything to say? Not really. Master and servant, huh? Having been told nothing, you must find this all quite strange, Lord Samurai. And even paired with such a terrifying servant. That pretty face belies a ferocious nature. And your knowledge of the ritual is woefully insane. Eh? Lord Samurai, isn't your command spell short a stroke? Command spell? Don't tell me you don't know about that. But I don't know. I didn't mention that, did I? What is it with these two? Just looking at them hurts my heart. Right? Aren't they just adorable? My little Yori's always been like that. If Saber was just a bit younger, they'd be two cute little peas in a pod. I don't see the resemblance, though. That's the part you're going to reject too, Saber? I could just eat you out. Speaking of eating, I could actually go for some udon right now. Come on, I'm trying to have a serious conversation here. Fine, Big Sister will fill you in. We may be enemies, but you are Musashi's disciple after all. If you would be ever so kind. For the love of... Okay, first is the command spell. I'm talking about this seal. It's proof that one has joined the ritual as a master. It's also considered a symbol of your connection to your servant, of the contract between you. The command spell can do a lot of things, actually. For instance, you can dramatically increase your servant's magical energy or instantly summon them to your side from afar. Above all else, however, is the power to issue your servant a decree. A decree? An absolute command to your servant. You can order us to do anything and we'll have no choice but to obey. By any order, you mean like commit suicide? To put it another way, a master's words and orders normally lack the power to compel. It's kind of a last resort. You can amp up your servant when you need to dig deep. Amp up. Is that some kind of Dutch word? Ah, right, gotcha, sorry. It means to increase energy, strength, and power by a bunch. Watch out, it's a doozy. Yeah, I'm remembering in Fate Extra when I pumped up Caster, and it basically let me absolutely clown on Berserker for one single round. Think of it as making an average swordsman strong enough to cut through steel. But keep in mind that it can only be used 3 times. Each time you use it, the steel loses a stroke. Use it 3 times and you're out. Technically, the connection remains, but some heroic spirits see it as the end of their contract. Yeah, like specifically the thing that stops your servant from just murdering you at any given moment is the fact that like you could use your command seal to just be like, nuh-uh. If you don't have that leverage, it's entirely down to how they personally feel about you. The command spell, I think I understand. Like, for example, if I were a servant and I had a shitty master with no command seals, I'd probably just put him in a box somewhere and keep him alive until I won the Grail, without actually letting him out. The command spell, I think I understand. Yeah, Berserkers and Assassins... Which is on the right, left, probably move to the right. Okay, I can do that. Scooch over here, I put the thing back up, and let's put that there. Alright. An absolute decree. It's pretty clear when you put it like that. Additionally, another thing that adaptations don't always cover. Back then, I stopped say word the word. Another thing about command spells that most adaptations don't really cover. They're not like genie wishes. The more complicated or involved an order is, the less compelling force it has. So like something like leave or stop, where it's just like a one-word burst command, that's like guaranteed to go through. But if you give a command like, say, you know, obey all of my orders forever, that's basically just gonna tickle. Also, yes, he literally did exactly the Shiro thing. He summoned Saber without understanding how, got attacked by Ryder, not Archer admittedly. Saber proceeded to wind up to utterly annihilate Ryder, and he was like, no. And then the command seal fired off. Back then, I stopped Saber with a word. I did it without realizing it, but it seems I did indeed use the command spell once. You could have at least explained that to me, Saber. What is it with these two? Musashi, what do you think? Cute! They're so cute! That again? We might be fighting as allies, so it might be helpful to explain the ritual. You got an act for this, so I'll leave the lecture to you, Dayu. Wait, was this, up to this point, not already a lecture? Oh no. Oh, for the love of... I'm gonna have to teach these 2 baby birds everything. Actually, I'm a fox. First and foremost, the waxing moon. Purportedly, it's an artifice that grants any wish. That's the prize we're fighting over. Oh, they give it the head pats. Wait, did the head pats actually happen? A wish granter? I'd heard that your wish could come true, but... I do hope it's true. I'd be disappointed if it couldn't even grant a wish after summoning mythic beings like heroic spirits. Anyway, moving on. The waxing moon requires a ritual and 7 summoners, masters, are chosen. That's us. You, me, Yui Shosetsu, and 4 others. The masters use the heroic spirits granted to them by the waxing moon to kill each other. That is the waxing moon ritual. In short, we wager our lives in a mad scramble for the waxing moon. I see. 7 masters, 7 servants fighting to the death, except when it's 14. The waxing moon calls a total of 15 heroic spirits to this world. Oh. And to create copies of these heroic spirits, it needs vessels to store the information of their souls. In simple terms, we call it a class. Class? Amazon and archers using a bow. Archers never use bows. That's how you can identify them. Seven classes except for all the other classes. 7 vessels to hold a heroic spirit, thereby creating servants. 7 masters, 7 servants. But where did the other 8 come in? A question. Didn't you say that there were 15 servants in total? How astute. Yes, the remaining 8 servants do not have masters. And one of them is the fearless champion you just fought, my stalwart bodyguard. Without a master, he acts according to his own will, a rogue servant. May I? Earlier, you mentioned that a master functions as a servant's power source and anchor to this world. What is a rogue servant's anchor? Where do they draw magical energy from? From ley lines. Ley lines, natural torrents of power, a steady stream of magical energy. They're massive and go by other names like Earth or Dragon Meridians. I never imagined I'd hear you talk about them. Huh? You certainly know a lot about this, Iori. I learned this from Gramps Red, but the secrets of the mystics have little to do with the way of the sword. To get back on topic, ley lines flow throughout Edo. Spirit fonts are where energy flows abundantly. Shrines and temples are often built there. Then this Yoshiwara is also a spirit font? I don't see any shrines around here though. Shrines aren't a necessity, but yes, this place is also a spirit font. Specifically, it's the spirit font Comic Sans, which is why it's got a berserker. That rogue servant gets energy directly from the ley line that flows through here. He has no master and can't leave his own territory. So that's why. I thought he was able to act freely. Not exactly. The rogues in this ritual are rather inconvenienced. They have less magical energy than heroic spirits contract with the master, so they're considerably weakened. Their spirit origins seem unstable too. Oh, a spirit origin is a servant's body, by the way. You're saying that was weakened? Oh, he's an exception. You normally don't see rogue servants with that much energy. An exception? You say he has no master, but that large man certainly seemed taken with Dayu. How uncouth of you. Must it really be said aloud? It should be obvious. He worships the doors and protects me. As expected of Yoshiwara's greatest, the incomparable Takao Dayu. I'm impressed that you managed to captivate an ancient hero from a foreign land. It happens. Tsuchimikado? Yes, Lord Tsuchimikado, head of a clan of Onmyoji, governs the waxing moon ritual. As far as I know, he's apparently the observer of the ritual. So, the waxing moon is some kind of arcane Onmyoji secret? It sounds more like a folktale than a religious rite. The waxing moon? A holy grail subspecies, is it? That book popped out of his crotch. Whoa!
じいさん、急
Grants,
に
what's
何
with
を
you
や
all
っ
of a
て。
sudden?
わからぬかいより
Don't you realize it, Yori? How could the waxing moon ritual be a mere onmyo, though? Onmyo spells can't summon heroic spirits, and this seems far removed from the feats of Buddha or the gods. It's likely not even a ritual born of this country. Just how did the current Tsujimikado chief acquire foreign magecraft?
何なのさこれ
What is this thing?
よく
It sure
喋る
talks
け
a
ども
lot. Don't squeeze so tightly. But no need to let go altogether. If you're going to hold me, perhaps more of a gentle caress is in order. Turn the pages, don't rip them out. Be kind, woman.
ごめんごめん
Sorry
おじ
about
い
that,
ちゃん
Grandpa.
てか
But wow,
そっち
sure
系の
knows
物
his
知り
stuff.
じいさん
You
み
got
た
quite
い
the
ね
gem here, Lord Yori.
こいつを使
It
え
could
ば
help you devise a
計
plan.
作ってさっきこう言ったろ
Remember what I said earlier
あの子
about
は
that
霊
boy
地を
being
よ
tethered
り
to
ど
the
ころ
spirit
にして
farm?
る聞いたぞ
Yes, you're talking about that hulking berserker, right?
はぐれのサーバントはみんな
Rogue
そう
servants are all
さ
like that, but masters can also use magical
霊
energy
力
from ley
の
lines.
陰陽師だか魔術
I
師だ
don't
か
know
は
much
知ら
about
ない
Onmyoji and
が
mages, but
Master
all the
ってのは
masters use magical abilities.
だからマスターは霊地を
Masters
本拠
build
にして
strongholds at
そ
spirit
の魔
farms to make
力
use of
を
the
利
magical
用す
energy
る
there.
私がここ
Just
吉
like
原
I'm
に
taking
陣取って
Yoshiwara
る
as
よう
my
にね
territory.
で
Huh.
は
Are you saying that you have abilities
術を
too?
使うのか
I mean, if she didn't, she wouldn't have been selected. What do you
どうだ
think?
ろうね
なるほど。
I see.
俺
You're
も
saying that I
本
should
拠を
establish a
定める
stronghold
べ
as
き。
well.
そう話
Indeed,
が早い
clever
ね
boy. Eh? We've already turned his home into a workshop. I won't say where, but it's...
ピンとき
Oh,
た
I know. In downtown Asakusa, right?
なるほど浅草
Asakusa,
ね
huh? That is a rather
それは
splendid
それで立
location.
派な
Oh, bother.
全く。
There's no hiding anything from you, Master. Well, I'm glad that you've
ま
at
あ
least
最
done
低
the
限の
bare
支度で
minimum.
掌握した霊
The
地が
more
増える
spirit
ほど
fonts you control, the
サ
more
ーバント
magical
に
energy
回
that
せ
your
る魔
servant
力
can
も増える
use.
んだ
Okay, so that's gonna be like that's gonna be like the points that I have to grab during this mode, I imagine.
裏を返せば抑えた霊
Conversely,
地を奪
losing a
われ
spirit
れば
font to an enemy
自分
means
た
losing
ちは
strength to
弱
them
く
too.
英月の儀は
The
切った
waxing
張
moon
ったの
ritual
戦だけ
isn't
じゃ
just a
ない
common street
霊
brawl,
地の
it's
争
also a
奪
war
戦
for
でもあるの
territory.
ま
Huh, then we'll
あ
just have to claim all the spirit
全
fonts
て
for
の
our
霊
own.
地を
Aren't you a lively one?
けど派手に動き
I
回る
wouldn't
のは
move
ど
so
うだろ
gracefully
う
though.
ね
Good spirit fonts are
格
often
の
key
高い
places for
兵
the
器の
shogunate.
騒ぎを起こせば
If you cause a scene, they'll be there in full force to throw you in shackles.
わかるぞ
Oh,
それ
I
は
know what that means. Seppuku. That'll be a Yori's job.
いや、
I bet even the male Musashi didn't go that far in his training.
でも目
But
立つなって
really,
いうの
don't
は
stand
本
out.
当よ
The Holy Grail,
聖
the
杯もとい
waxing moon
英
ritual
月
is
の儀は
fought in the
や
shadows.
手の内を明かさ
Don't
ぬ
show
よう
your
に動き
hand
つ
and
つ
scout out your
他者
opponents to
の動
outmaneuver
向
them.
手の内は
But haven't we already shown you our hand? Yep, you're
そう
right.
ね
Just don't be careless
私
with
たち
anybody
以外
else,
のマ
okay?
スター
なるほど。
Alright,
わかりました。
I think I get it.
つまり、
This is essentially a
江戸の町を
war
舞
with
台と
Edo
し
as
た
the
戦だ。
battleground.
イエス
Bingo,
その
that's
通
it.
りさあこんなところだ
That
ね
just about covers it.
話すべきことは話したし
I've told you
ここ
everything
ら
that
でお
needed to
開
be
きと
told,
しよう
so
じゃ
why
な
don't
い
we
か
call it a night?
感謝する。
You have my
貴殿
gratitude.
のおかげで、
Thanks to you,
木
I've
の
managed to
形
grasp
が
the
見えてくる
essentials,
セイバーは司祭
even
の
without
片
Saber
田
telling me
し
anything. The pouty.
仲いい
You
ん
two get
だ
along so well.
セイバー君
May I have a moment, Saber? I've been dealing with heroic spirits for a pretty long time,
ちょ
so
っとだけアドバイス
I have some advice for you.
あ
Of course, you're not obligated to follow it.
受けたまわろう
Very well.
あのね
The thing is,
マスタ
you
ーなしじゃ
can't
勝て
win
ない
without a
わ
master.
たとえ天下一の名
In
剣
a
を持
duel
った
between
剣
heroic
士だとし
spirits,
ても
even a great
英霊
warrior with a
同士の
legendary
戦
sword
いには
can't win
勝てない
alone,
と思う
except when they can.
最強の将軍や最高の
Not even the
王
strongest
妃
generals, trudest
最大
kings,
の
or
神
greatest
仏だっ
gods
た
would have
と
a
してもね
chance. Except when they do.
そ
Does
こ
it
まで
really make that much of a difference?
そこまでよ
It
は
does.
ぐれでなく
Maybe not for a rogue
ひとたび
servant,
マ
but
スターを得
certainly
た
for
ら
those
ね
with a master.
オッケー
Got it.
それじゃあそろそろ
Alright,
しまい
we
さ
should
ね
finish up here. But before you go, I
別
have
れ
a
の挨
favor to
拶
ask.
の面白い話
Bring me more
もっと
juicy
送れよ
gossip.
優位小説の話だけでは足
That
りない
information
か。
about Yui Shosetsu wasn't enough?
はい、わかった。
Very well.
さっきのはなかなか
It
良
was
かっ
quite a
たよ
tale. I'm surprised you'd already made contact with the other masters.
その調子でどん
If
ど
the
ん
news
頼む
coming,
よ
names and locations of other masters and their fortifications.
そのあたりがわかると
If you happen to come by such
姉さん
information, Big
嬉しい
Sister would be
わ
ever so appreciative.
期限を切りましょうそうね
Let's set a deadline. How about the
7日っ
7th?
て
師匠。
Master,
からの無理難題をもらった
You look like you've just received an impossible task from your teacher, Iori.
その通りだよ。
Just so,
この感じ
this。feeling is actually sort of nostalgic.
期限を破ったり無視
If
し
you
たり
miss
し
a
た
regular
ら
deadline,
さっ
we'll
きの
take up
蝶
our
々
fight right where
発
we
信の
left off.
早々に死に
Heed
たくな
my
けれ
words
ば
if you
気
don't
を
want to
つ
die
け
an
る
early
こ
death.
と
承知しました。
Understood.
他のマスターの居所を調べて
We need to
君
investigate
た
the
ちに
locations
報
of the
告
other
すればいい
masters
ん
and
だ
report to
な
you, yes?
そういうこと
Exactly.
文句ないね
No objections?
なら
Then
さっさと吉原を出な
get the fuck out.
武蔵ちゃんの父みた
You
い
seem
だ
close
し
with Musashi, so I'll let you go,
こ
even
こ
though
は見
you're a
逃して
master.
もっと頼もしくなってく
If
れ
you've
た
been
ら
more reliable,
共闘
I
し
might
て
even
くれ
request
って
your
こっち
assistance
か
in
ら
battles to
頭をさ
come.
そうら
Alright,
言った言った
leave.
ご親切。
Much obliged for your hospitality.
行こうより
Let's be
な
off,
んや
Yori.
かやで指針も
Now we
得
know
ら
what
れ
to
た
do next.
あ
Yeah.
そう
Oh,
そう
one last
最後
thing.
に一
Even
つ
though I've already dismissed you twice.
大事なことを伝えとくよ
This is important, Lord Miyamoto Iori.
あんたはマスターになった
You have become a master.
故に
As such, you
自らこの
cannot
儀を
back out
抜
of the
けること
ritual.
はできない
Except you can
英霊を失うこと
lose your heroic spirit,
己が
lose your
命
life,
あるいは
or
義を
fight
勝ち
your way
抜
to
く
victory.
この3つ以外に抜ける手
There's
立て
no
は
escape
ない
beyond those three outcomes. You would do well to remember that. Now, I'm pretty sure you can actually go to like the war's overseer and like give your servant up for
武
adoption.
蔵ちゃんの弟子にしちゃ
Then if another servant loses theirs, but they still have command skills, they can come and like adopt it. As your disciple Musashi,
光るものはあるみたいだけれど
I see a glint of potential in
大し
him,
た
but
相
it
手にはなりそう
doesn't
も
look
ない
like he'd be much of an
だ
opponent.
ねお侍にしちゃ
For a
あ
samurai,
ん
he
まり
seems to be
気
lacking
迫
in
がないみ
spirit.
たい大兵のよってや
Though
つ
we
だ
do
し
live in peaceful times.
そういうの
Perhaps
が
that's just
常
how
なの
samurai
か
are
もしれな
now.
い
え
正面切っての人情沙
If
汰
it
な
comes
ら
to open
私
bloodshed,
の
my
サー
servant
バン
must
トが
surely
必ず
win.
勝
Am I
つ
wrong?
そうね
I suppose not.
おや
Oh,
かの新面武蔵と
even the
回
great
ろう者
Shinmen
が
Musashi would
弟子
hesitate to
相
fight
手
her
では
apprentice.
うん
Oh, there's no need to worry about
そこ
that.
師弟愛とか家族愛
Familial
とか
bonds or a
そう
student
い
or
うので
teacher
手
student
は鈍
relationship
らない
wouldn't
か
stay in
ら
my
単
hand.
純に
There's just a lot on
頭
my
痛い
mind.
なこっちのいおりくんもああ
This
なん
Iori
だ
really is like the one I know. It must be hard for him to live like this.
ほんと
He really
生まれ
was
る
born in
時
the
代を間
wrong
違えた
age.
のね
うんなすべきこ
Alright,
とは決まっ
we
た
know what we have to do, but
せっか
since
く
we're
だ
already here, I want to look around Yoshiwara a little.
構わんが。
That's
夜更け
fine,
前
but
に
we
は
need to
帰
get
る
back
ぞ。
before it gets too late. And no making trouble. Twists and turns of fate.
あれは見ろより
癒され
And
る
then we
わ。
pet the kitty.
ほら怖くないぞ
あれは見ろより
ほほ
Oh,
昼とはまた
Yoshiwara is so different at night. The whole place is shining.
そうだな。
I
用がな
suppose
ければ
if
早
we
く
have
帰る
nothing
ぞ。
more to do, let's hurry back.
なんだ
What? You wanna go home? The affinity gauge fills up as you work with Saber or get Saber excited. Oh, puppy, I love you immediately.
おとなしいな。
Yeah, if I forgot to say it earlier,
うい集め
every graphical option that just wouldn't absolutely ruin the game, I set to the lowest possible level. So hopefully my frames will be good tonight. I'm going to understand that Takao Dayu is now attended by a formidable guardian.
そりゃ太夫であ
Of
りん
course,
すし
that's what it's like to be a
あ
Dayu.
ちきらとは扱いが
Someone like her
違い
gets
せ
different
さんす
treatment
よ
from the rest of us. Okay, so the map actually indicates stuff that I've interacted with or not. That's cool. Oh, there are fights I can pick over there. And speaking of picking things, I really do adore dogs. Unless they're trying to, like, rip my throat out, which has happened a few times, but like typically doesn't. Wait, I didn't do anything wrong. Those courtesans toyed with my emotions. Unrivaled lecher Toji.
早々に片付けるぞ。
And then she had to try and remember how to play this game. Oh wait, that's Saber. I shouldn't attack them. And he's dead. That's what you get for not taking no as an answer. Premate's good? That's good. Important and integral to the experience is that the crossover event in the gacha included a petting mechanic. Excellent. But can we pet foxes? Foxes need to be petted as well. That's very important. It's finally all cleaned up. I don't know who did it, but they sure made a mess. Also, I see that the map button is working now. That's also nice. Ghost of Tsushima gameplay? I mean, I'm game, I just don't think I own that game. It's definitely very much on my hit list, though. Yes, you very much can pet foxes there. And just like in general, it seems like the kind of game I'd be into. I just don't own it, I'm pretty sure. What was the GPS button again? Ooh, kitty. This one's a calico. Oh, indeed it is. Thank you. Greetings to you. I'm missing about 200 hit points. I will feed Saber. I also noticed that there's a check mark. I wonder if there's like a bonus for feeding Saber everything. There probably is. Definitely seems like the case. Eating everything in every shop is in one given map is usually one of that map's side quests. Interesting. I will be a little bit more cavalier with that when I have more money. I'm so used to playing the N64 Zelda games. I'm like fully in rotate the character and press L to change the camera mode. I keep forgetting that the right stick's an option. Haha, Yoshiwara turned out to be a fine town. To think that this place is a spirit font. You wouldn't
た
know
だ
it just by
歩くだ
walking
けで
through.
はわからぬものだな。
浅草も霊地だそうだ。
Asakusa's one too,
じい
apparently.
さん、
Did you know about that,
知っていたのか？
Gramps? Of course I did. This ancient grimoire isn't just for show, I'll have you know. I have a broad knowledge of this region. Other masters should also be in spirit
な
fonts.
らば、以後は
I'll
頼
be
りに
counting
す
on
る
you
ぞ
for。that later. Alright, shall we return home?
ごちそうさまでした。
Thank you for the meal.
うん。
Yeah,
気のない返事だ
you're
な。
usually more spirited. Oh, Jigstraw, welcome. Yeah, unfortunately, Zurian was first tonight. You're usually more spirited.
うん。
Uh-huh.
さては飯
Not
の
enough
量が
food. That's not it.
というか君、
Wait, are you making
私
me
を
out to be
退
some
職
kind of
官か
glutton?
何かと思
Well,
っていない
you're a
か？
saver, so yes, actually.
違う。
No, I mean, you're not.
見当違いも
You're
甚
way
だ
off.
しい
It's
ぞ。
just the
米
rice.
がどう
What
した
about the
と？
rice? Never
なん
mind,
でもな
forget
い
it.
ならば気にすま
Okay,
い。
I will.
時に、
By
先
the
ほ
way,
ど
do you remember
高尾
what
太夫
Takao
が
Dai
言って
said
いたこ
earlier?
とだが、
高尾はいろいろ語ったが、
Takao said a lot of
どれ
things.
だ？
What specifically?
義を抜けることは
About
でき
how
な
I
い
can't back out of the
のあ
ritual.
たりだ。
それが何か？
What about it?
義からは抜けられない。
I cannot back out unless I lose you
セイ
or
バ
my
ーを
life.
失うか、自らの命を失う
Anyway.
か、あるいは
Or I fight my way to victory.
義を。
ならば話はたや
Sounds
すい
simple
な。
enough.
打って出る。
Bring the fight to them.
私
That's
な
what
ら
I would
そうす
do.
るが、
What about
無
you?
論、
I'll
そう
do the
す。
same. He totally could just back out by being like, Saber.
やるな。
Saber, kill yourself. Progressing Lunar Chronicles and digressions will fill Saber's memento ring. The memento ring represents the bond between Iori and Saber. When it is filled, it will grant effects such as increasing your chances to use link strikes in battle and unlocking Saber's skills. Ooh, alright. I need to defeat 100 humans with Saber. And that's literally just the, that's literally just that one attack from Neo too. I'm in the way of it, but like it's, you can see what it's doing anyway. Neo 2 is a really good game. Now, Iori, I need to ask,
これから何
what
を
will
す
we do
る？
from now?
散々太夫から義の
Daiyu
司祭
shared
を
many
聞いた
details
か
about the
らな。
ritual, so we need to settle that debt.
他のマスターの拠点に
We
当
should
たり
consider
をつ
where
け、
other masters are located and
探
search
っ
the
て
area.
回る。
How about that? Yeah, not a bad
悪く
idea.
ない。
I had the same plan
私も
anyway.
同じことを
I
考
was just
えてい
testing
た
you.
から。それで、
And
君
then,
は
how will you decide on a target?
優位小説の本
We'll
拠を
look for
探
Yui,
る。
we'll look for Yui
太夫の
Shosetsu.
ほか、
He's the only
唯
participant
一
we know
の
of
教え
besides
あってや
Fire.
つは、殺
He
さん
gave
と
his
す
name
る
to somebody
俺
he
に
planned
名
to
を
kill.
告げ
There
た。
was no deceit in that.
どうにも
He
律
seems
儀
an
な
upright
人物。
individual.
ふむふむ
Uh-huh.
それから、
Beyond that, remember his appearance? That formal
あ
bearing
あ
and
も
white
整っ
hair
た
really
容
stand
姿に
out.
白髪はよく目立つ。名と姿。
With two clues, his name and appearance, he should be easy to track down.
で、
So where shall we begin the
ま
search?
ずは手近からだ
We。should start nearby. Thank you for the head pats.
江戸は800野町と
Edo
言
is
われる
large, but
が、
there are only so many
限りはある。
possible locations. We'll begin with Asakusa.
筋
Right,
は
that
通
seems
ってい
reasonable.
ると見た。
We're searching
で
for
は
Ryder and Huey
ライ
then,
ダー、
yes?
私としても
If I could use my
相手側な
opponent,
ら
I would want to battle
ライダ
Ryder
ーか
or
ランサ
Lancer.
ー全く依
So
存
I
な
have
い
no
ぞ。
objections.
同意を得られて何よりだ。
I'm so glad you agree.
まずはライダーと
Our
シール
showdown
を
with
決
Ryder
す
comes
る。
first. Lancer
ラン
comes
サー、
after.
さあ、行くぞ、よ
Alright,
り。
let's go, Iori. Ryder and Lancer are the only servants he's met. Or they've met. Now they've met Berserker. In whichever class Musashi is. Okay, I'm gonna bank points with Saber so I can get up here, because I want that. Yeah, we've met Berserker, not Berserker. I suppose that is an important distinction to make. Oh, affinity gauge increase. That sounds potentially very good. I want this, though. Basics are basics for a reason. Attacks in Earth stance will no longer be repelled by enemies. I want that. That's actually huge. Hey, your brother and Saber. Where might you two be off to on this fine day? Well, could it be you're seeking out for a private rendezvous? Rendezvous? Is that what we're doing, Iori? No. Listen, Kaya, I know, brother, I know. Go on, enjoy yourselves. I'll watch over the place while you're out. And Kaya's so adorable. Yeah, alright, get it together. We're off to ask around for information. Okay, I can switch to between town and Edo map, and alright. And perhaps I should try saving my game. Saber doesn't want me to rest. Luckily I defeated them. Interesting. I'm not really seeing an explicit save button. Oh well. Hopefully rest was implicitly that. If we're looking for rumors about Yui Shosetsu, maybe we should check in a crowded place. A digression has become available in Yoshiwara. Talking to rogue servants and other specific characters or visiting certain towns may begin digressions, which are side stories concerning rogue servants or other parties. If you see a digression icon on the map, be sure to check it out. Saber wants to go here. There's a digression with Berserker there. This map is surprisingly large. And there's something here, but we don't know what. Look, Iori, there's some tasty looking food left over there. What a waste. I'll just... Hold it. Those are offerings to Jizo. Oh, so they were offerings. That was like the Stone of God. Oh, that was close. Okay, so I know that the other one's Berserker, but I don't know what this one is, which means it might be Rogue Rider. And that's the only servant in this game that I actually really care about. Okachimachi. They expire? Cool. I'll just do them as they pop up then. This place is just brimming with vitality. Is it Suzuka? No, it's Tamamo Aria. It's the variant of Tamamo that's like very small. We're not here for a pleasant stroll, Saber. You there, the dashing samurai, come take a look at my wares. Lancer Tamamo is Beach Tamamo, and her spear is an umbrella. She's like in a swimsuit with a sun hat. Sorry, I'm in a rush. But of course, stop by whenever you have time. And bring your companion with you when you do. Damn it, Saber. You vanished and ran off on your own. Saber couldn't have gone far. I should hurry, though. What's your deal? Oh, you're a merchant. You can now sell items at the general store. Awesome. Okay, I can just gacha into some stuff. I'm just gonna buy some of these preemptively. There's a quest to talk to residents. Oh, there's a fight over here. Resident there, and... kitty over here. Or dog, same thing. Well, not the same thing, but anyway. As a fox, they're both equally far away. White kimono and hair tied back? No, I haven't had any customers like that. Oh, these are the... Okay, I thought that was like a side thing. Looking for somebody? It'd have to be elsewhere. You're my first customer today. Please buy something. I'm gonna go pick this fight. I wanna kill people in Earth stance. Ooh, kitty. Kitty standing up like a palico. There's no reason to go this way. Oi. I call the shots here. I guess the game doesn't want me fighting without Saber. I totally could just be using the GPS. And I probably should be, because I'm not very good at directions. Okay, cool, I got it right. I just passed by that girl. She was looking all around with such fine eyes. Is she from the countryside? She was adorable. A customer in white with their hair up? Somebody like that came by a little while ago. Came and showered me with a bunch of questions. I couldn't even catch my breath. I see a shiny thing. Large pot lid. Couldn't possibly belong to the food stall. It's mine now. Let's go. Ooh, puppy. No, I wanted to pet the puppy. Okay, I'm now actually friends with Saber.
Saber!
I now care about 2 servants in this whole shebang. Saber? Well, you're a lady, Ori. Huh. Did you enjoy yourself in Okachimachi? What are you saying? I was simply investigating my own way. Eh? Iori? What's the mask for? I thought I could use it to blend in with the people of this world. Don't be mistaken, I wasn't just wasting time. I never said that. An unfamiliar town is full of curiosities. Well, yes, that's true. Yeah. But I really wasn't just playing around. Do you sense it too, Iori? Yeah. Good. Somebody's watching us, no doubt. Hi, chat. I felt those eyes on us ever since we stepped foot in Okachimachi. Yo, will you guys get out of the way already? You're ruining my business here. Sorry, don't move. Thank you for the hydration. Hey, do you know Yui Shosetsu? Saber, don't go just asking anyone. Yui Shosetsu? Why do you ask? Is the Kitsune Mask in Ragnarok after training 999 tails for it from 9-tailed foxes? Oh no. Do you know him? Keep it down, I don't want the Ronin to hear. They're crazy about their Grandmaster. Oh? That Yui Shosetsu gathers Ronin at a military school he opened. He's up to something. Just between us, the Ronin gathered at the school all seem to detest the government. I wouldn't be surprised if they were plotting something. Where are these Ronin? What, you got business with them? Don't get me involved here. Go ask around to the tavern. They're either in Ryogokubashi or the one to the north. It's one of the two. That academy with all the Ronin. It might be Shosetsu's stronghold. By the way, what's a Ronin? They're people like me. Okay, so Saber, like, you know what a samurai is, right? So like, you know how samurai get paid for things? Yeah? The ones who don't, those are Ronin. Warriors without a lord or the skills to make a living after Tokugawa ended the fighting. I see. Let's make sure we get their head chopped off. Shosetsu's academy. Ryogokubashi Tavern is closer to our location. Pet dog. This dog looks like a loaf of bread. Yank. Oh wait, Saber. Oh, you took the fox mask off? Okay, what is it? Yuri, what kind of store is this? I believe it's a place where you can see rare beasts. I've never been myself. I've heard the animals perform impressive acrobatic feats and such. Well now, that sounds like a lot of fun. We're not going in. It costs money. It was a skill fight for Saber, nice. Give. Mine. Ugh. Yuri, what manner of store is this? Ah, this is Beyblades. An acrobatics display. You can see tricks with spinning tops and the like. A spinning top? How curious. Yuri, could we perhaps? It is, of course, not free. Maybe some other time. You think Fox Mask was meant to be an unlockable outfit, but it's time for a pre-order one for Musashi. We never got any ones. Yeah, Pipeline got clock wraps. I did see on the Steam page for this that there were like a lot of viable outfits. Okachimachi seems like a very lively town as well, on par with Asakusa. There are many interesting establishments. I'd like to stop inside if I could. There's something to do right now. Next time. Huh, that's a promise, right? Are those people gathered there, Ronin? They look like they're itching to fight. I don't think we'll be able to talk to them. Let's try capturing one. Worry not, there are plenty of ways to make somebody talk. That would be the last resort. Let's try eavesdropping on them from behind the store. Yeah, don't knock torture until you've tried it. Oh, sneaking about like a ninja is pretty fun too. Oh, Grandmaster Shosetsu? How could you serve those bastards in the shogunate? Ow, 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 the boss. Why? Your students believed in giving your cause to right the wrongs of this world, but taking bribes from officials, that even your heart could be twisted. How dare you? You would doubt Grandmaster's heart and integrity? Money would never hold sway over him. There has to be more to the story. More to the story? Don't tell me those government dogs coerced him into helping them. It has to be, no doubt. Damn the shogunate, damn them and their dirty tricks. Shosetsu is concerning the shogunate, but to what end? What is he to them?
幕府
Shogunate?
幕府
Shogunate?
セイバ
Saber?
ああなんでも
It's
ない
nothing.
しかし
We
私
still
塾の
don't
場
know
所
the
は
location of his academy. Why were we just captured?
ーやめておけ
No. Let's move on. Right over the tavern to the north next. Okay, we're getting back up closer towards the fight. In towns that offer local trials, there are bulletin boards that display details about the available trials. If you find one, be sure to check it out. The rewards earned for completing all the trials can be obtained at the town's bulletin board. Steel mallet and skill jewel if I do everything. Okay, so it's not eat everything, it's buy something at every individual stall. I wonder if talking to people can unlock things.
このところ
Strangely enough, I can sometimes hear thunder roaring even when there's not a cloud in the sky, that'll be right.
大臣様がお
Have we
怒り
angered the
な
thunder
のか
god
ね
somehow? Oh, this is terrible.
見ろより
Look, Yori, aren't those the Roni?
おそらくな
Probably.
や
Where
つ
are
ら
they going?
ユイに会いに行くの
They
かも
went
しれ
off
ん
to see Yui. Let's follow them. Well, before we do that, let's take a 5-minute break. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. Anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return. I actually got a snack over the break myself. And I reminded myself of a funny thing that happened to me the other day. I had a coupon for a cheap sandwich. From like a place where like normally the prices aren't worth it, but if you got a coupon for a cheap sandwich, it's worth it. And I went in and I talked to the cashier, as one does when they're trying to purchase something. And I handed her the coupon, she scanned it, and then she handed it back to me. And I was like, what? And she was like, oh yeah, like you can have it back. If we kept it, we just throw it out anyway. And I don't think she understood the concept of a coupon, but I wasn't gonna correct her. The endearing spider lily.
抜け道か
Is this a secret path? Where could it
一
lead?
体どこに続いて
It's a giant hole that is in my field of view as soon as I enter the area. Like, I would not call this a secret. Also, I'm on the wrong side of the screen. Whoopsie. A trap, eh? You sneaky rats have been following us long enough. Time to get what's coming to you. Okay, one of our kills with Earth Stance. One of your grandmother's friends was trying to get rid of 200 bricks. And then she gave you a gallon bag full of Chex Mix. Your grandmother or your grandmother's friend? Okay, gotcha.
なんだ
What's that? Another monster?
やはりか
I guess we should have expected that. Sailor? Yeah, let's go, Leori. I forget how to swap with Saber. There we go. I remembered how to swap with Saber. A natural creation. And a step. Ruby Daybig breaks Scabbard's open iron guard.
会議だったな
That was the first time I've seen that kind of monster. Did the ritual bring them here? You saved our lives. We're grateful.
貴殿
You came back just to say that? We must show gratitude no matter what. That is the code of our teacher, Grandmaster Shosetsu. Then you... Oops, have to get moving. Goodbye.
待てまだ話
Wait,
を
we're not done talking. Yeah, he's gone.
あの急ぎ
It wasn't
は
quite the hurry. Perhaps he was on his way to the academy.
ユイの本拠を
This is our
暴く
best chance to uncover Yui's stronghold. Academy, Yori.
よし
Right, well, that way too. Yeah, those guys look like, I think they're called bleeding cap mushrooms. put a tea biscuit here. They're quite good with jam.
撫でたいな。
よしよし。
Yeah, every mushroom is edible at least once.
うい集め。
I think the nastiest mushrooms work by, essentially making it so that your cells can't synthesize new proteins. So essentially, like, every time a cell would, replace itself and then die, it fails to do so. So if you've been subjected to that, you usually die in about 3 days from liver or kidney failure, I think it was.
なんだここは。道場？まるで人
Is this
気がない
place a
な。
dojo? There's absolutely no sign of life, but where'd that Ronin get off to? We'll turn this place upside down.
徹底的に探すぞ。より。
Don't worry, Saber. I'll help. Can you see them, Saber? I'll take that as a no.
集め。
Where did they go?
どこへ？
We can't let our only lead on Yui get away.
待って。
Hold there.
貴殿ら。
Are you the guys assigned to this area? State your business. Yeah, if your liver is the one that goes, if you realize that you've eaten the mushroom that's doing this to you and you get to a hospital, like, immediately, like within like a day immediately, if you're very, very, very lucky, they might be able to do a liver transplant and save you. Odds are, though, you're just dead. Are you the guys assigned? Are you the guards assigned to this area? State your business.
こやつらだ。
It's them.
何？
What?
これまで我らを睨み
The eyes that have been
続
burning
け
into
て
our
きた
backs this whole time. It's them.
なるほど。
I see.
邪魔者は。
Interlopers must die.
ほほ来るか。
Here they come. Time to get our way through, Yori.
鋭くありながら。見かける。運によらず剣にだとしたら。やば
弱いな。
It occurs to me that I don't actually know how to activate riposte. Oh, he's a monster now.
しぶといやつね。ならばもう一度だ。油断したな。終わりだ。
やまったか。
Oh, I didn't even see my health going down, honestly.
セット。
You've operated a home kidney dialysis machine before.
鋭くありながら。
I hope whoever you had to use it on is okay.
運によらず剣を見だとしたら。
dialysis is like really nasty stuff, but it's obviously better than not having it. He ended up having a bunch of strokes. That's unfortunate. That was a move. Switching to a different stance after gaining Afterglow in Earth stance will temporarily stop enemy attacks from staggering you and reduce damage taken. It bumped. Okay. Okay, that one went way better. We wasted quite a bit of time. That road we were after is certain to be long gone. No need to be so glum, Saber. We still learned something about our enemy. Next, we need to find out how to get to the academy. Maybe my connections could help. Connections? Sukidoshin, the constable. The magistrate has been keeping tabs on the Ronin. They keep watch on places where people gather, including schools. So they might also know about Yui's school? I can't be certain, but it's possible. Let's return to Asakusa. Skills list. I need to kill 15 more people. I just got my hands on a nice sword. Would you ever test it out? It actually happens sometimes. It's kind of messed up. A samurai would get like a new sword, and they would just test it on the first person that they could find. Just like, what were they gonna do about it? Called Samurai? None of that. You aren't cool enough to have like an anime second wind. Neither are you. Alright, what might be found over here? Reminder that I've looted gear? Yeah. Alright, I've already got your stuff. Can I sell anything to you? Yes, yes I can. I can also go over here. We still haven't fulfilled our agreement with Takao. Should we really be going there? A fair point. We got a pass once before. Maybe we should stay away from Yoshiwara. I mean, does that mean that I'm like abandoning my current quest? Or does that just mean that like, I might get punched again if I go there? Sometimes it's hard to tell which. It's a warning before I get my butt kicked. I mean, that's not what's gonna happen if I go there. I'm just gonna win. I say while demurely applying jam to a second tea biscuit. Saving my game for no particular reason. Rogue Berserker? What's got him so upset? Listen, we're not your enemy. It's no use. We don't seem to be getting through to him. We shouldn't have come here so carelessly, but it's too late now. We fight. The unshakable bulwark. I like the part where he... oh shit. I like the part where he grabs Saber by the face. Right, with an enemy like this, I've gotta wait for him to be blue. You'll die at this rate, Yori. Fall back. No. I totally got this. I can still fight. Shit. I won't say they didn't warn me.
大技が来る。構えろ。
終わりだ。
弱いな。見せてやれ。
I need to stop going for the
続け。より。
for like the head slam thing. He's not vulnerable long enough for that. Okay. Nope. Alright, he got his sauce back.
遅いな。終わりだ。
放つ。
力を借りる。
わかった。私に続け。より。
Okay, so I anticipate I'll need to go through 3 phases of breaking his shield. Given that I didn't quite get half of his health down.
いつでも良いぞ。より。弱いな。
見えている。見えている。
合図をくれ。より。残念だったな。読めた。いつでも良い。呼べ。
Saber's out. I was gonna say Saber's, whatever gauges that, like, lets me be Saber is filling up, so that's nice. Also, I wonder if these other abilities are, like, more worth using. Also, I need to take those link skills off. Because those definitely aren't.
残念だったな。
味わうといい。
読めた。
I don't like how many rice balls I'm, burning through. But it's not like I'm using them for anything else, really. Main cost skills can interrupt by glow attack and stun. Oh, I thought that I... Okay. I didn't realize that was a thing. Yeah, it's been... Oh shit. Yeah, it's been like a week since I saw any of that. I'm gonna give it one more shot.
命は奪うな。町も砕くなよ。
まったく難しいことを言う。合図をくれ。より。
受けてみろ。
読めた。
見えた。
Oh, I still have to save when I needed my Onigiri? I did.
弱いな。いつでも良いぞ。より。
出番だ。
すぐに行く。
Alright. Okay, I'm getting the impression... Oh shit. I'm getting the impression that my master attack should mostly just be for the purpose of building Servant Affinity. Yeah, like, I fully acknowledge that I'd probably be more successful if I, like, left, got stronger, and came back. Oh shit. I at least partially want to do this because it's difficult. Like, this particular challenge won't be here if I come back later, you know? Like, it'll be the same challenge, but it won't be as challenging. Ow, rude. Right, now I can hurt him. Unfortunately for Berserker, I consumed an entire rice ball before I hit the ground. Oh shit. Saber's just like, are you sure you want to go through with having your face grabbed?
Yeah.
You came back once you could survive the choke slam? That's reasonable. The way I see it, I can survive the choke slam once. Thank you for taking that to the face for me, Saber. I appreciate it. Yeah, the range on that really isn't very good. I should just save those points. No, I'm not talking about the blocks that I get from having Earth Stance. I mean, the first time Berserker would kill me, Saber's just like, are you sure you want to keep fighting? Noting one shot, I got grabbed, and Saber immediately interrupted it with, are you sure you want to keep doing this? That was my shield gauge saving me. Maybe it was the shield gauge. Oh well. Speaking of, there it goes. Right, I've now got 2 servant points. Or affinity points, rather. This time around, oh shit. Alright, perhaps I'll come back later. Do understand that if I were not streaming, I would keep fighting this guy until I won. Just putting jam on the last tea biscuit. Like I say, I don't think it's dumb. I think it's just I want a challenge. To the constable on Moriori. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna make a separate save here, so that I can come back later and fight him with these same stats if I want to.
Yoshi, yoshi.
Like trying to kill the tree sentinel several times? Yeah. The urge to be like, oh, it bleeds, is strong. I could totally kill this guy. Oh, actually, there's a lot of fights here. Hold on. Speaking of killing guys... If it isn't Miyamoto Iori, the magistrate's lapdog, I'd recognize that ugly mug anywhere. You are really baby-faced for somebody that, wide. The main difference between this game and other Musou is boss fights like that. Yeah, I can get behind that. My main issue with like normal Musou is that they're actually just mashing all the way through. Waiting for the Musou to happen. The Musou is when all the little guys come in and I have to kill them all by mashing. Be gone. And he's dead. Oh, kitty cat.
Yoshi, yoshi.
Yoshi, yoshi, yoshi. あれはなんだ
I'm going this way so I can buy from a food stall.
赤くて大きい
It's so big and red.
あれは
Yori, what's that?
あれは雷
That's
門
the
の
Great
大
Lantern
提
of
灯
Kamarimon. You know what a lantern is, right?
うん知らんな
I have no idea.
まずはそこか
I
ら
guess
か
we should start from there.
この匂いは
よしよし
Oh, Saber's trying.
ごゆっくり。
Alright.
またのお越しを。
I wonder if they actually fed the voice actor, or if they could just do that.
いおりさん
Oh, Yori.
悪いが今
Sorry, but I don't have any bodyguard work for you right now.
今日は別だお
I'm here
前
about something else today.
優位小説を
Do you
知って
happen
い
to
る
know
か
Yui Shosetsu?
なあ巷で話
The
題の
military scholar who's the talk of the town, yeah? Lots of Ronin want to join his school.
さすがに耳が
I
早
knew
い
you'd have your ear to the ground.
その
What
塾
exactly is that school?
悪いな
I'm sorry, I don't really know. Hold on. Now that I think about it, one of the students lives in the samurai residence in Suidobashi. I heard he just enlisted with the Lord there. You should know, yeah?
それはいいことを
That
聞い
sounds
た
perfect. I owe you one, Tsukinoshin.
初めから同心に聞けば
We
よ
should
か
have
っ
asked
た
the
な
constable in the first place, but I don't mind sightseeing.
そうだな
You're right, the sun's
日
setting.
も暮れる
Let's head back home for today.
いおりさん
Oh,
ちょいと待ち
Yuri,
な
hold up a second.
用心棒の依頼は来ちゃいないと
I
言って
said I
な
didn't have any bodyguard
いく
work,
つ
but
か
there
紹介で
are
き
a
そうな
few
仕
jobs
事
to
が
get
あ
help
って
with.
ね
You can accept commissions from people who are acquainted with the Yori, such as Tsukinoshin. Reporting completed commissions will earn you rewards, such as money and mountings. I'm one kill off of completing this one. Win a battle within 20 seconds. Interesting. Alright, the next time I get into a fight, I'll kill one person in water stance and then go back to Earth.
あ
Though actually, I think I might already have hit my quota. Okay, attacks in Earth stance will no longer be repelled. Oh, that's like a whole thing. Alright. Need to level up at least once more. That's cool though, I can like do like a parry. Attacks in any stance will no longer be repelled. I can get an extra valor gauge, that's interesting. I can come back to life exactly once. Or even without being in Earth stance. And then this one just lets me keep slamming the sword, I think. Yeah, I like this tree. I like the Earth tree. Oh geez, this one's expensive, although I guess it makes sense with how easily Saber gets points. I also need to kill 8 people with
今日
Saber.
はよく働いたなよく働いたら腹が減ったな
Don't hesitate to, feed Iori all the skill gems. Noted. That last guy really thought that they were him. When there's a reportable Edo commission, the client's icon will appear on the map. Interesting, so I don't have to be in Asakusa to complete those, that's good. And there are 3 more fights down there. I do this, will my thing lead me there? Let's find out. Looks like it will. Awesome. That means I'll never get lost. Oh. Okay. Did I just clear a battle in under 20 seconds by accident? Not complaining, I suppose. If that didn't count, I'm gonna be upset. I also keep forgetting to, I also keep forgetting to reset Saber's affinity skills. And he's dead. Oh right, remove the link skills. I forgot. Thank you for reminding me. I got into a fight, saw that I had them equipped, was like, oh, I should change that. Then in the course of the fight, forgot. And I don't actually have an alternative, so I'll keep this as it is, I suppose. For now. Also, yeah, I can change up my gear the next time I get an opportunity. Going off of the alert... I was gonna say, going off the alert, it looks like there's one more, but I guess they just spawns a bunch of fights into the map whenever you come here. I presume that's what's going on. Rather than there just being like a fixed number of fights. Okay, I was thinking along the lines of, oh, I want to complete the map. But if it's not like that, then it's not like that. You heard roguelike skills somehow? I mean, it's kind of like roguelike skills, except, it's not a roguelike. Basically, they're skills.
気持ちいいか
I'm grateful that every cat and dog appreciates being petted. A lot of the time you try to pet a cat and they're just like, nuh-uh. She just like me, for real.
あんたの腕驚いたぜかたじけない
Right, thank you for that.
じゃあまた
You need to stay away from that house in the back. What are the odds that that's some kind of secret mission? Or is that just a way out of town? That might just be a way out of town, actually. I like the way he just, like, moonwalks to the side whenever he has to open his door.
Nah, Yuri.
Hey, Yori, what have you been thinking so hard about?
セイバ
Saber,
ー貴殿
what do you think about the matter at Okachimachi?
そのことか。
That? Huh.
連中が突
The
如
soldiers wouldn't
今
suddenly
日
go
発し
mad
た
without
わけも
cause.
おそらく
Perhaps
何
some
らか
kind
の
of
種に
curse
よって
affected their minds.
呪術か
A curse, you mean?
となる
A
と
curse, you say?
術
That
師
would
が
mean
い
a
ることになる
spellcaster is
な
nearby.
さてな
Perhaps.
ユ
What
イは
about
ど
Yui?
根拠を探る私
He
たち
may
の
have caught
動
one
き
of our
に感
attempts to
づ
locate
い
his
た
base.
まあど
Well,
う
it
で
doesn't
もい
really
いこ
matter
と
who's
だ
spotting what.
敵は切る
The enemy will die.
私がそう
I will
する
slay them.
確かに小
It
説の
certainly
仕
is
業と
possible
い
that
う
this
筋
Felicia
はあ
says
り
his
得る
work,
だが
but it just doesn't seem like his style. Is Ryder gonna blow up our ceiling again? What's that?
敵襲か
An enemy attack?
噂をすれば
Speak of the
な
devil,
んと
huh?
やら
Let's go. It would actually entertain me
もののけか
quite a lot if it just became like a recurring joke of every time we try to go to sleep, Ryder blew up our house. Monsters? Like bees to honey, they must have been drawn by the workshop's magical energy. But how was it detected by mere monsters? Oh, for shame. This is all because you were so relaxed with the repairs, Yori.
説教なら後にしてくれ
Electric
じ
and
い
light
さん
gramps. Saber, are you ready?
誰に向
Just
かって
stabs
言って
Yori
い
in
る
the dick. Ha! Who do you think you're talking to?
さあやるぞより手間取るなよ
出番だ
任せろ
Yes, like this is the Muso part where I'm just mashing and I'm winning. Oh, hello there. Is that a new way?
以前の怪異
These monsters are nothing like before. Soul Eater. That's an enemy I've never seen.
いつでもよいぞより待っていろ見切れまい
受けてみろここだ終わりだ
Yeah, compared to Berserker, this thing's not that tough. Ah, the diagonal lightning bolts. My only weakness. Aside from, like, loss of blood and raised voices. Half expecting me to give it the boar treatment. I have slightly more class than that, I like to think. I'm not meant to fight this. What do you mean? The quest marker led me right here. I'm appreciating not having my sword deflected. Oh, I read that backwards. I am meant to fight this now. Saber, shoot it to death. Thank you, Saber. I got a lightning horn from that. Did we get all the monsters? Yeah, I don't sense anymore. However, I am worried about what lies ahead. What about exactly? Oh, haven't you noticed? You've been targeted from the beginning. Demons and monsters are honest in that way. It's easy to see how weak you are, so you make an easy target. I thought you might say that. Yes, my skill with the sword is inferior to yours. But they're not targeting the weak. There's no damage to any other houses. Oh, you noticed that? You're not wrong. The enemy has bared its fangs against only the two of us. Ignoring the townsfolk asleep in their beds is actually fairly unnatural. Which means somebody's controlling them. It's conceivably some manner of Shikigami that only attacks masters and servants. If that's the case, this house will likely be attacked many times over in the days to come. We can also infer that they've pinpointed the location of our stronghold by now. The monsters will come again, and in greater numbers. That's why the workshop must be perfected. No more shoddy workmanship. I thought we did a pretty good job. Maybe if you were alone, but we can make use of the ley lines that flow through the earth. Takao said this area is also a spirit font, yes? Asakusa is indeed a large spirit font, which will provide an abundance of magical energy. And we could use it to improve the workshop? That makes sense. But how do we go about it? Katon is the only magecraft I can manage. That's because you were never willing to take any lessons from me. At any rate, you just leave it to me. I'll pound the ins and outs into you if I have to. We'll make a proper mage out of you yet. The ins and outs? In where? Out of what? Huh. It's an expression, a turn of phrase. You'll never get any of my jokes. First, we need to prepare the site to harvest magical energy from the earth. Then... Alright, I'll rest later. Improving the workshop, are you? Seems like dinner won't be ready until you finish. I'm glad you understand. Now give me a hand. If one does not work, one does not eat. Is that the saying? I suppose I must work. If one does not work, is that really a saying? Is that not something you say here? Oh well. Alright, time to work with this workshop into shape. Okay, I can level up my workshop too. Ley lines can be connected to via the Crimson Codex. Souls in Sync increases affinity gauge fill rate by 2%. I get more health from food. Mounting effects can be upgraded and altered. And makes things cheaper. That should do. Come on then, open me up. Instead of doing that, I'm gonna save the game. And we're gonna call it there for the night. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it each and every time. Next scheduled stream is going to be on Sunday. I haven't decided which game it's going to be, but it's probably going to be a continuation of my archipelago. Next time I'm playing this game in particular is going to be on Monday, unless it breaks again, which I'm hoping it won't. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful night, and I hope to see you again. Good night.